I bet you I got it worse than you. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian. It's simply about having a relationship with God and how do we live this out in practical, everyday terms. Romans chapter 12 and verse 1. We have a crisis in our society of who is the biggest victim. And it's everybody else's fault. And oh, woe is me. Look what I have had to deal with and what I've had to struggle with. And people in the church, Christians do this stuff too. Nobody knows what it's like to be me because I've lost this family member. Nobody knows what it's like to be me because I've had this disease and these people have been mean to me. And look at what all is wrong with me. And I am the victim. And with that victim mentality, when it comes in, out goes responsibility and accountability. You'll know that. And that's for a different time. Now, Jesus was a victim and a sacrifice. And it's interesting how those words tie together. In Romans chapter 12 and verse 1, God is begging you here, which is amazing to me. I appeal, I beseech, if you're reading your New King James or King James, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God. I'm not going to read the rest of this in the ESV. I'll come back to that in just a minute from the New King James. It's a better translation there. And in the King James, anyway, he says, I'm begging you to be a living sacrifice. Now, I don't have to sacrifice like Jesus did. God could have easily have said, you've got to go to the cross and die like my son. But he's only said, I want you to imitate this. I want you to emulate it. I want you to be like him. And you start with baptism, with that burial or death, burial, and resurrection, just like Jesus. And then you imitate that sacrificial life. When Jesus came here, nobody confuses what he was about. He was about seeking and saving the lost. He was about serving. He was not about personal time and vacation and enjoyment and fulfillment and all these other things that we get lost and trapped in. So you say he's a sacrifice. Now, caught up in that word sacrifice is he became a victim. A guiltless victim, by the way, absolutely innocent. Now, nowhere in the Gospels, when you read about Jesus, do you see a victim mentality, though. You don't see Jesus hanging his head. You don't see Jesus saying, woe is me. And the closest maybe that he ever got to that was in the garden when he's sweating like drops of blood and he's begging the Father, if there be any other way, let this cup pass, nothing else. But then he ends that with not my will, not the way that I wanted, but your way. No victim mentality whatsoever. So here's the challenge. God wants me to be a sacrifice, but not be so down about my sacrifice or so weary about it or so such a that having that victim mentality. I'm losing my words here, but you know what I'm talking about, just dragging and making sure the world knows how difficult it is. That's not how Jesus acted. He willingly gave himself, and God wants that same mentality for us. So he wants me to be a victim, which is not fun, by the way, especially when you're doing it and other people are victimizing you. That's the idea, though. That's the idea brought about with suffering, but not have that mentality of, oh, woe is me. Look at what all's wrong. Instead, he tells you to do crazy things like rejoice when you fall into various trials. So can you do it? The challenge is there. Be a victim, be a sacrifice. He says in the New King James, in the ESV, it says, which is your spiritual worship. That's a bad rendering. A better rendering is your reasonable service. What that means is it's the most logical thing you can do with your life is to be a victim for God and to appreciate that, not whine about it. Thank you for being here with us. If you've not already subscribed to The Average Christian, hit the button below. If you want to see the last video released, it's up here in this corner. If you want to see what YouTube recommends, it's over here in this corner. To our podcast listeners, thank you for being here. We're asking you to subscribe, rate, and review. And please, everyone, share this with somebody else.